Hi guys, Paul Seils here from Conscious Investor Network, talking about supply chain financing. I've got with me Thomas Miller. Hi Thomas, how you doing?
Very well, thanks. Thanks for having us on the call, Paul. Yeah.
My pleasure. First of all, we've got to get clear on what is supply chain financing?
Supply chain, basically, this is what I'm at university and I'm just doing a master's in this supply chain finance. And it's just looking at ways, everything that we have in the world is made through a factory of some sort. And there's a chain of taking raw resources and turning them into computers or anything. There's a big movement out there to make these supply chains very open source, so that there's consumers out there and government people and everybody is actually, well, hang on, what actually goes into my food or my phone, or who are the people that are building this stuff, or who are the people that are growing my food? And so it's more of about just accountability in supply chains, and some type of integrity around supply chains, like who's touching my food, what are they putting in it, where are they growing it? Just simple things that you should actually need to know when you put something in your mouth. But a lot of the control that happens in supply chain, especially big ones, is the finance side of it. So, a farmer, say, for instance, might have, 40 acres of cabbages or something, but then he needs to go and pick all the cabbages. He can't do that himself. And he might not have enough money in the bank either. So, this is a way of using blockchain to make a future promise on a portion of the profits from that deal. And so I'm just at university, I'm just focusing on those financial aspects in supply chain finance. How does people use blockchain to finance, when they have a cash flow issue, how they can do that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different ways around that. But the cool thing, the part I'm mainly focusing on is making that aspect transparent to the customers who are eating the food. Yeah.
So you've had I know your background, Tom, but you've got a lot of experience in the blockchain space. And when people sort of hear blockchain, they sort of maybe think of Bitcoin. Can you just create what it is that, what is blockchain for people that don't understand it?
Yeah, well, I've been explaining it to people pretty much full time since 2013. But the main issue with people just saying that blockchain is a cryptocurrency is it's not. It's just a database, and you can do any type of thing on this database. And people are coding up all sorts of things. But it's a database that you can't censor. So you can put stuff up on there. It's like having a giant blackboard. Everyone in the world can throw stuff up on it, but you can't take stuff down. And this is really important when you start throwing data up about food, or throwing data up about, the way products are created, or, people's work hours in a supply chain. Because then with that data, you can go and check and see, oh yeah, okay, so you're saying your people are working 16 hours or you can basically verify independently, going and looking at these commons databases that we can all use to manage ourselves. You can verify if there was sweat labor or if there wasn't, or if there was some type of, was the food below 18 degrees? Was it, it could be anything. So it's just a way that stuff can be thrown up, and then later on it's an audit trail. It's a breadcrumb audit trail that we can all use to verify what happened. So if a company commits, as all the companies that I work, they commit to using a blockchain database instead of a centralized database, then they're basically committing to holding themselves accountable to people in the world. So it's another way of thinking about it is blockchain is actually no different to the way our brains talk to each other. You can't delete anything out of each other's brain, but we all can verify each other's stories by talking to each other. It's literally exactly the same. So it's just using databases the same way that we use our brain database. That's probably the best non-technical way of explaining it.
Okay. And I guess one of the main obstacles I have that conversations with people that, obviously a lot of people have sort of made a lot of money through cryptocurrency and that sort of thing as well, Tom. But people are concerned about who has access to that information and whether it is really decentralized, and whether it's what's the intention behind the blockchain.
Well, one of the first things that, definitely there's a lot of worries like that, and I'd be worried if I didn't understand the technology enough, and then someone's coming along with this digital database thing. I'd be pretty paranoid about it all. But you know, I think I'm more paranoid of using centralized databases. At least in decentralized databases, there's integrity with the information. So no one can just do a blanket change on all the values in that database. The databases, the centralized database that we use now, companies are making changes on us every day, and there's stuff that we didn't opt into. At least with decentralized databases, changes like that can't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, you only agree to continue using that database. You can't change anything in the past. They might upload new contracts, like programmers, or these contracts are going to get as easy as doing a word processing document in the future.
Yeah.
But you can't. No one can do a rug pull in blockchain.
Okay.
Blockchain databases.
So can you just explain what's the definition of decentralized? What and why is it becoming the buzzword for moving forward in relation to
decentralization is important. We've just seen it like too often now, like even just physically, you know, these shipping lanes, the Suez Canal ship that, you know, if we can't all be dependent on one little choke point. And so decentralization is about reducing those choke points, and not only reducing them, but making them, here's another example, like, you know, different apps go offline, you know, on and off all the time. But if you have that same app decentralized and actually distributed, it becomes resilient. So it doesn't need to load from just one place, from, you know, Amazon servers. It could load from your closest community of phones, like that the people that you do smart contracts with. So that's really important, especially with all the changes on the planet, that we need to have resilient systems, not just, you know, systems set up by big centralized authorities, because they just go down, they go offline. And the most stressful part for a programmer managing these centralized databases is it's all down to them to make sure the database is still serving the information. And if it doesn't, everybody falls apart and everything falls out of whack. So this is just inevitable that we're going to move to more resilient databases, so that as different computers come on and offline, the information can be propagated to your chosen trusted network. Because when you load something from Facebook or Google, your name, that comes from Facebook. It sits on a computer that Facebook owns. They don't need to own it. Like this is the thing. They don't need to even host it. You know, Facebook's actually more of a protocol than it's a way of doing things online than it's turned into a giant data mining thing. But that's really not the that's all going to sort of be replaced mainly because I think programmers are sick of managing centralized databases. They don't want the stress, because they code something up and then they try and host it on a database, and then they're responsible for making sure that database is continually going, even despite they're moving on with another job. So it's too much baggage, and they have this whole thing called DevOps, and all that's going to happen is that people are going to push the responsibility. This is really pushed by engineers and scientists, are pushing the responsibility of people's personal data on their own devices, so that when you load stuff on new social media pages in the future, it just comes from your personal device. And if you don't want that data on the internet, turn your device off. You just say it's not available for the public to use. And if you're that paranoid, just turn it off. Like, here's an example of a hollow port. I might just bring this up on my phone. I've just got it running on my desk next door. But it's just a place where I can hold my private data. And if I don't want my supply chain data or my cow data or anything about my products online, I can just turn it off, and I don't need to have it there. It's like they call it an air gap. And then you give permission for people to do different things on your data as you see fit, not as some company making blanket rules about everybody, how it's going to work. It's all agent centric, so human centric. It's about you making a decision. It's really a giant data reset on the way we manage data across the internet. So decentralization is really about resilience. So making sure that when you want the data to be available, it does load, and there might be 20 or 30 other machines that you've chosen in your trusted network for data to load. And then it's also about integrity, that you know that the data hasn't been changed. And yeah, I think that's probably enough there.
Yeah.
That's my
And
definition.
I was going to ask you as well, Tom, because people got some issues and concerns at the moment about, these threats of sort of cyber attacks and that sort of thing, whether it's, probably primarily initially on the energy sector and food supply chains and that sort of thing.
Yep.
Like what's the application and what problem does it solve in relation to, decentralization as far as, those type of supply chains are concerned?
Well, I think, we've done the first version of computers and the first version of the internet, and now we're taking a step back and we're looking about everything that humans have created about the internet right now. And we're realizing there's a lot of risks. And as we're realizing those risks, we're actually realizing all the bottlenecks. And pretty much anywhere where you have a centralized database, that bottleneck can be plugged and the whole system comes crumbling down. I think there's a bit of fear mongering going on, but I think also the other side of it is that it's actually real. Like we've actually built the internet in the wrong way. It's a very unsecure thing right now, and people are capitalizing on it. And we're building these giant pots of gold at the bottom of which is just a giant server that holds everyone's information, and it just becomes a hacking risk. So there's people out there, it's not good, but it's actually just going to happen anyway because we've created an internet where we keep having pots of gold that tracks everybody that's worth hacking. And so it's just not the way to build a system that's going to last. So we're just going to see more and more hacking, in my opinion, and that's another whole risk that programmers and database managers really don't want to have. And so their solution to that is to move to decentralization technology, so that they're not responsible.
Okay, and you've been working on. You spent a lot of time. I mean, I've known you sort of 10 years or something, Tom. So you've been working on aggregating some of these projects yourself into your own token and your own supply chain. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh, we just use tokens mainly for like proof of effort. So we're not very good at accountability in the world. Like we're literally not very good at it. We don't really manage it very well. So when someone does a job, we don't really have a checking way. So what we're using is what we call accountability tokens that manage, if they've done the effort, or it's proof of effort and it's proof of community. So it's really important that when you hold a token or a currency in the future or something, one of the first questions people will be asking themselves is, how did that tradable thing come into existence? And they'll be able to use, they can use these databases now, these blockchain databases, and track where it went and how it came into existence. So right from the very first event. And that's really important, because then you want to know when you're holding a tradable thing that it's not doing anything bad or nefarious to anybody on the planet. That's one of the main issues. I think one of the main things that these blockchain things have been created. We want to know the history of the value that we're getting from somebody else, so that we know if we are empowering things we don't care about. And that's pretty much how all of us as individual agents are going to, individual humans are going to sort of, are taking back control in this whole process. That we want to verify ourselves. We don't want to trust an organization to say everything's okay. We want to verify ourselves that the value that we're receiving from somebody else is not empowering someone to get suppressed on the planet.
I just want to talk to you, just go back to the conversation around the cryptocurrency and that sort of thing as well. I mean, there's over sort of 8,000 cryptocurrencies or something now in the market.
Yeah.
What's the difference between like a token and a currency, for example, in relation to application?
Well, everything's just tracking value. Like when someone goes and does an accountable activity and they get a few accountable tokens or whatever you want to call them for doing that activity, you're just tracking the value that that person provided to that network. So I would just call they're more just communities of people tracking their activities with each other and self-organizing. And then when that happens, if you have you could think of them more like oh, great, you've just gone and done something. Go on, we've grown up with this. Go on, here's some stickers. You get 5 stars today. And then at the end of the month, you work out you've got, 25 stars. It's recognition that you've done, something good to that community, that classroom, or anything. And then you use that recognition or you use that value to do other things. So then you might join another community and they might say, hang on, you're a stranger. Prove that you've actually, you know, what's your resume like? What have you done for other communities? And you can go and give them one of your blockchain accounts and say, well, I did this, this, and this, and this. And so this is how much I'm proof of community. This is how much invested I am in the community. So it's just a way of accountability. What's weird and what I find very strange about this whole thing is that we've gone and applied some money concepts on top of these databases, and it's just wrong. It's just not how the nature of how this information works. You know, it's more about, you know, if 10 people are standing in a room and you decide to organize an event or organize to build a house, you know, you're actually all the time asking questions backwards and forwards and holding each other accountable. Okay, what do we need to do next? Okay, yes, we need to put the foundations in. Okay, and you're actually just tracking it like a blockchain database. Okay, we've got to, what do we need to, we need to set the concrete, or we need to put the steel frames in before we can pour the concrete. That all those checks and balances happen, and all we're using these blockchain databases is just to do the same thing. That's, yeah. So, and then, yeah, but the weird thing is that we've applied this whole, some people have applied this money aspect on top of it, but really all we're doing is just tracking our activities and the accountability in it and making sure that people have done the right thing. And then we're giving them a few stickers if they have done the right thing. And at the end of the year, we calculate how many stickers they have, and that's sort of, it's like merit points. It's just a measure of how much effort they've put into their community, the communities that they've chosen to get involved with. Yeah.
And can I just go back and just revisit the conversation as well? You know, like it's sounding like an episode of Black Mirror with the 1 million merit points. I guess a lot of people are, there's a bit of an overlap there between the decentralization, but also not like moving to a, you know, digital currency, new world order sort of conspiracy sort of, so that seems to be a resistance in the market.
So let's unpack the Black Mirror episode. I know the one very well, and everyone's awarding merit points to each other. Now, in that situation, that's on centralized databases, and there's somebody that can look down at everybody's merit points, and they actually reserve the right to take away people's merit points. And then that's what happens in Black Mirror. You know, you get classed as somebody, and then, you know, then it can turn into a nightmare for you.
Like a social credit system, Tom.
Yeah, a social credit system. Now that's terrifying. But in blockchain databases, nobody can take away your merit points. Only you have the ability to do that. And you also get to create the reasons why more merit points get added to other people's accounts. Everyone has, this is what I keep trying to say, like, because you're the only one that can change the records on your database, on your blockchain database, because you hold the private key, that's those secret words, there's no way that someone can go and make up rules. There's no way that someone can go and take your database away from you or take anything away from you in these blockchain protocols. And the cool thing is that you get to create how we're going to, what is value and what do we want to award. So, you know, yourself, Paul, like, you know, you know what needs to be done on the planet. I know from my point of view what needs to be done on the planet, but, you know, in current systems, we don't have the ability to reward people or give digital stickers to people for doing the right thing. But now we do. And when a community does a lot of accountable actions and they get a bunch of merit points, that community becomes valuable. And that's what happened. And that's why the Ethereum communities become valuable. The Bitcoin communities become valuable. So, you know, Bitcoin, say for instance, every time someone does Bitcoin mining, you know, they get merit points, and that's they're getting rewarded for doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So can I ask you about that hypothetically as well? Because a lot of people are speculating at the moment, saying this whole COVID thing that's going on in the world at the moment is part of the Great Reset, and people want to issue digital currencies, and that's the thing. What would happen? Is there any risk there in relation to, you know, governments saying, you know, this is the legal and authorized currency, and your currencies are, you know, illegal in effect?
I mean, when you go to a party and you take a cake, that's like going to a party and taking a cake to the party, and then someone saying, or the government saying, yeah, sorry, you can't take mud cakes to parties anymore. It's like, yeah, you just can't do that. So that, you know, if people want to let that type of control happen, that, you know, that's not the world I want to live in. I'd like to have the ability to choose to take a carrot cake to a party and not have that regulated on me. But, you know, somebody else might bring another cake as well, or we could pay for the party in cakes. This is the thing, like everything is a flow of value. It takes a while. We've grown up in a very mono currency system where we just don't understand that, but we actually do it all the time. Like even when you organize a group of people coming together, you only organize it because it's valuable, and you organize the right people coming together because they provide different parts of value that make the whole for everybody.
Yeah,
so
and that's the other part.
I say it would be very difficult to try and just say, there's 10,000 things or currency, whatever you want to call them, out there now. And, I think we're just going to see 20,000, 30,000. I think every business is going to manage their own merit point system at some point and reward their closest customers, give them some stickers every time they do things that they want to see happen. So everyone's going to have this ability now to create tradable things. And that's what blockchain's really given us, whereas we never had that in the past. So.
Well, I just want to say about that as well. It's like some people also have some resistance around like determining what the value is. So it's like, they talk about like, a dollar has a value because it's meant to be underwritten by a government. People going, resistance around cryptocurrency, blockchain. It's like, what determines the value? Who guarantees the value? How is that determined?
Well, we're coming from a world where we've, a lot of the population have had value told to them what's important. But actually, deep down as humans, we already know what's valuable, and we know it's valuable because we do it each day. And so, if you want to put a number to these things, these activities of value, paying for a service or whatever, you can do that. But whatever ends up being is whatever's going to get them to move and do a transaction. Like it's like value only happens in that instance when it happens, and if someone feels like it's valuable. If they don't, then yeah. But we are coming from a pocket of understanding of living in just one value system, or we've been told that there's only one value system, but we've now since learned that there's thousands of different ways of value, but we just don't understand it very well. I think that's more our issue. We don't understand what value really is.
Yeah. So you've actually created some projects recently as well, Tom, that you've incorporated as part of your community and launched your project, STF5, I think it's called.
We did part of work at QUT was just trying to work out, so there's we can do the traditional finance market side of things, but then, there's also this, tracking accountable actions. And we wanted to test building an asset-backed cryptocurrency using the standard cryptocurrency patterns out there. And so, we just wanted to work out how that would work. And because, that's one of the issues that people have. So this is STM5 is a real registered security. It's started off as an experiment because it's probably the first real cryptocurrency that's backed by assets. Basically, what we're building, what we did build with that is how to, sure, you might hold a token, and if the token is registered as a security, you need to be able to verify what is the value that's backing that token. And so what we built was an asset explorer that explores the assets that are registered under that token. So that, because my position on this, and I find it very strange in this world that people would hand over money and not be able to track what happens to it next. So if they, this is, I'm not involved in investing or any of that sort of stuff, but my opinion is that if you're going to invest in something, you need to explore what that money turns into, and you need to be able to see it real time. And that's the cool thing about blockchains. You can go and, if you're going to go do investing, you can actually go and explore the blockchain and go and look at what that money turned into and how it's made, something bigger or better, and then you can verify, what your return would be. So yeah, like I actually do like, I teach people how to explore blockchains. So just the way we explore the internet, or we surf the internet, or we go and explore social media, there's actually this other thing now called exploring blockchains, and you can go and explore the value sitting on these blockchains and the history. And I think a lot of us, especially people who are would be put in the activist class, they need these types of tools because they need to explore what companies are doing. So people like me and other people will hold these companies that run on blockchain databases in the future accountable, and that's how that, and we'll do that by looking at the database entries that they put on these blockchains, and right down to the actual individual humans who do it. So, but we're in a weird stage because we're in a world where we haven't had a lot of transparency. And we can't just reveal, people and companies feel, even big organizations, spoken to a lot of them, they feel very vulnerable just going and doing an overnight change. Even though people, my age would love these companies to just go fully open business and open up their business processes. There's a lot of privacy concerns around the whole thing. And the only real way to solve that is to turn the whole thing upside down and actually make privacy by default. So that's why, there's some good technologies out there where you hold your private data and you only share parts of information that you feel comfortable. And maybe you feel like you overshared too much private information. So that's all right. You just pull it back and you don't share it anymore. You reserve that right in these new blockchain protocols. So I think I'm waffling on there, but basically,
it's good.
Yeah, we're just in a state. I think we're in lots of different pockets of people with different understanding of everything. And we're in a stage where we actually the people are demanding more transparency and accountability, because we have dealt with, I've grown up my whole life just watching the car salesman promises and never being able to follow through and seeing what happened from that promise. So with blockchain, people can make a promise and then they can go and verify if that promise happened independently from having to trust the marketing department of the business. So okay. I don't see many old organizations moving onto these databases. A lot of this I see as new organizations moving onto these new database structures, because the old ones, they don't understand it. It's too much of a stretch for them. This is more being driven by 30-year-olds, and yeah, and there's the whole make money aspect that people are getting involved in, but that's making money or whatever, that's only backed by accountability. Like if the company doesn't do what they're going to do, then it's never going to work. So you might as well start with accountability first.
Okay. And I just want to ask you as well, to paint the picture of what it's like for a future under decentralization. I think a lot of people have got concerns that we're sort of headed towards this sort of dystopia on this current trajectory that we're on at the moment. Yeah. But what does the model of the future under decentralization look like?
Well, one, you should be able to be the only one that can edit information on your private representation online. So that's important, so that no one can behind the scenes just make a company decision to start editing things or framing you in a certain way. So you get to control the way you're portrayed online. And if you don't like it, you can just pull the plug. So that's really important. But two, once companies start moving more into using blockchain databases, only because they have to, because one, they don't want to manage their own central servers anymore. They're too scared of getting hacked or, that side. And then all the accountability issues around leaking people's private data. So they don't want to be custodians of private data anymore. And if there's anyone out there that wants to do it, then they really don't see, the scary side of it all. But yeah, and three, you want to be able that people's experiences when they buy a product, they want to be able to scan the product and go and look at, oh, there was 12 humans. And if those humans feel comfortable sharing their name, they can even do that. But that's their choice. But if they don't, and it's not transparent enough, people will use a new company that is doing that. But everyone gets to choose how much they want to share in these new networks. And that's really important because we are in a stage where, a big company that's got a lot of hate around it, they're terrified of sharing all their employees' data or who's been interacting with people's food, because they also on the other side, they get a lot of hate and they're scared. Their excuses to protect their employees, but it's just because we haven't built a trusted world yet where people do feel safe enough to share their name. So it's in my opinion, it's just an excuse, but at the same time, it can't happen overnight. I think people need to do it as they feel it's right. And this is the thing, like we're just told to trust the experts. That's great, but the experts, I think, have let us down because they also need to bring us on their journey of understanding things. And so you should be able to, you know, before having a vaccine, you should be able to actually go and look at the breadcrumb trail of data and on a database and see, how did that vaccine come into existence? Is it something I really trust? And at the moment, none of that information is really available. Some of it's available in some peer-to-peer journals, but not the secret source. And there'll be totally new organizations that build immunotherapy in open, transparent ways, and they'll outcompete the private companies because no one can compete with the open source evolution. Like, even think about blockchain. Like, it's just, you can't compete with the innovation. It's the fastest innovation on the planet and the fastest collaboration, and it's literally rebuilding the world right in front of our eyes, where the agent, the human, is the sole person who's responsible for their private data.
That's great, Tom. I've got a quick question. You mentioned about vaccines, and it's some people in the community have got concerns around that. And here's an application that might be relevant. I know we haven't discussed it before, but how would people hypothetically on blockchain be able to use a system to prove that they haven't been, like they're talking about creating digital IDs for the people that have been vaccinated? How would you actually create a situation and an application where people could prove that they hadn't been vaccinated?
Yeah, I mean, spin it completely the other way. Well, I think that's the default belief anyway. If you can't prove that you have, then the immediate belief is that you haven't, which is not right either. Yeah, and this is the thing. Like, this is why I find it very frustrating, and you know, that this is all happening. Like, there's all these new database innovations that are happening all the time. Like, when you walk into a nightclub, and you have to prove that you're over 18. That's what the guy is concerned about. And you hand over your card, but what they don't,
ID.
Yeah, you hand over your ID, and what they actually do is take a copy of it and just take that data. But all they're actually really concerned with is, are you over 18? So you could hold up a QR code in the future, and it would go and do a scan. They call this homomorphic encryption. So you could have on your HoloPort or on your little blockchain hosting thing that hosts all your private data, you could hold up a QR code on your phone, and it would give the address to where your age is on your HoloPort or on your just on your blockchain self-hosting device. But what it wouldn't go and take a copy of your name and number and, you know, where you live and everything. What it would do is just run a function over it, and it wouldn't even get how old you are, and it would just return back yes or no if you're over 18. And that's all they need to know. Yeah. And that's the same with the virus. You know, when we go and scan in different things and do all that, we don't need to be just putting all that data into a centralized database. This is the issue I have.
Yeah.
We just need to be able to prove that we haven't been to any hotspots, or you know, and that same mechanism could happen in that way. So I just think we're going to deal with this virus for a long time until we use information technology in a better way that's more trustworthy. People don't want to scan, and I get it, because, you know, the government's saying that they delete the data in 56 days, but there's no proof they're deleting the data. You know, there's nothing. So why would someone want to scan into a system that's could just do a rug pull on you at any point? But at the same time, you know, we've got a virus. So we're just in this different understandings, I think, more than anything. But at the same time, people need to retain their own private data and build their own trusted way of doing things. And so everyone's retreating. That's the way I sort of say. Everyone's retreating. Everyone's like, yeah, it doesn't feel right. You know, there's lots of miscommunication around the place. And, you know, can we trust Pfizer getting $70 billion out of all this? It seems like more of a money-making exercise more than anything. It's just, nothing's trustworthy right now. So we're in a stage of where we're all retracting. We're all getting back and retaining our private data, and there's going to be a big wave of people doing this a lot more. Like, this is just the start of it, and then we're going to reorganize. So yeah, we're still in a massive transition. Like, it's just a beautiful transition. It's scary. It's fun. Yeah, everything into it. The real human experience for all of us. Yeah.
It's
and
a metamorphosis.
Got to learn to get along. Yeah,
metamorphosis of sorts, Tom. But I think it's right. That's important with the overreach of the data and the information. Like you said, it's just a yes or no response. not having to give you specific information about your date of birth and where you live and all that sort of information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the information that we all need. Like when I meet somebody and they come into a group of people, the first thing I want to know is, are they a good person? You know, have they just murdered someone in the other room? I don't know.
Yeah. Can I trust this person?
That automatically, you know, but in these big centralized databases, like, you know, what we're right now, we just throw everybody in the same room. There's no trust, you know, there's no trust generated. There's no groups of people who are validating different people. Oh yes, he can come in the room because we know he hasn't murdered anyone. You know, there's all these different worries, like that every human, all these groups of humans have. Yeah, I just think we're in a total like mess, and we are sorting ourselves out. And these centralized databases that we've all started relying on are not safe either. Yeah.
Yeah. So can I just ask you about applications as well, just moving forward, because we've got a limited amount of time. Yeah. But we've also had the conversation over the last couple of years, I think it's since about 2017, where we were talking about launching our own cryptocurrency for Conscious Coin. Yep. And other people have sort of raised the conversation, like what's in the way of anyone creating their own currency?
Well, I think that's what's going to happen. Everybody is going to have their own thing or currency or whatever you want to call it. We're actually all sitting on a currency right now. We've got, you know, I've probably got about 70 years left to live of my life if I live to 110. So I'm counting down the tokens right now, like, and you know, you're spending some of these tokens. We're both spending some of these tokens right now. So everything is actually a currency. You know, I can go and engage with you and spend some of your life together. That's what we do. We spend time together. So we're always spending currencies. And I think in the future, it's going to get to the point, oh, you want a meeting? Well, you're actually going to spend some of my time. I'm going to spend some of your time. Does that fall inside our life purpose? So it's going to get that granular, I think. There's people out there experimenting with how they want to spend the rest of their life. And so people can spend their life in a group of people and make something bigger than the pyramids. People are just going to get to choose how they want to spend their life, and they're going to track it. And we will find other people that have the similar likes to us using decentralized internet who also want to spend their life in a similar way. So we're actually in this whole new way of doing things. It's a totally different paradigm. But, you know, we're dealing with a 500-year banking organization, those types of patterns where we've been told what value is. And so everyone is going to have their own currency. Everyone already has their own currency. It's called their life, and they get to spend it however they want. So, and then that's pretty much the root way things will work in these new social media networks in the future. And you'll be faced with these personal decisions. How do I want to spend my time? Because at the moment, you're just told to go to university, go to work, and you spend your time as an employee. And that's it. You don't actually really get a choice. You do get a choice, but that's the general pattern. But the pattern in the future is really about, you know, tokenizing your life and then making people aware that, you know, when they spend your time, you know, is that the way that people want to build the pyramids together? It's totally a different paradigm.
Yeah. So we're working up the concept for Conscious Coin for a currency that like creates part of that conscious community and gets to fulfill on projects, etc., that people want to create. You know, physical projects and that sort of thing. I'm just wondering, and given that with the time's limited, just like what's the process and the timeline moving forward as far as creation and implementation, etc.
Well, I mean, you've got that conscious accountability token now. So it's about making an analysis. How do you want that organization to flourish? What activities do you want to reward people with? And who do you also want to be on the sort of like larger decision-making process on? You got to standardize all the activities. So what does you know, the conscious network what do they want to build? What problem do they want to solve? And then what are all the activities that they're happy to reward people with to make that happen?
And then building it out so that there is some sort of consensus with the community, so it's created and it grows organically from within the community rather than a top-down approach.
Well, yeah. So there's at the moment the way new tradable things come into existence normally comes from big organizations, or you know, it's the top of the you know, countries. Basically, they do it. But what blockchain has enabled, that anyone can now make a tradable thing using these big databases, and make it have accountability. No one wants to hold any money held centrally because they're not sure if that server will turn off. So that's why, you know, things like, I think there was like e-gold or something before Bitcoin. They just never took off because no one trusted it. But now they can trust it because everyone has a share of the database. And it's more just the programmers doing it right now, but it's gonna, you know, it's just gonna flourish everywhere. Like, you know, there was a time where it was just programmers doing emails to each other.
Yeah. Do you see there being a tipping point? How far is the tipping point in the future, Tom? We've got other countries like Venezuela and that sort of thing adopting Bitcoin as currencies over their fiat currencies. Like what sort of timeline are you talking about here moving forward?
Oh, I think there's, you know, there's 10,000 value tracking things on the internet now that have been created from blockchain ways of doing things. But we're just in a Cambrian explosion of, you know, another year there'll be 40,000, and then it will just go up exponential. So from that 40,000, I think, look at the way Facebook grew. I think that's a good comparison. It took a while. It started off small and slow. Or look at the way the internet rolled out. It took 20 years. And there was big battles about the internet. I've since researched and found out that people didn't want the internet to go ahead. And that was all battled out in different courts and stuff. But inevitably, this is just the way it works. So, you know, it's just about how much people want to take action now and invest in these networks. Like when I'm saying invest their time into building a world that's better for everybody, not just a few. So, yeah. So I would say, yeah, I mean, we're seeing, you know, different currencies flourishing all the time now, every day. Like that, I remember when it used to just be 3 currencies, and then there would be one new one a month. Now there's like, you know, thousands every day being added. So we are in this very, very exciting time where we're just in this Cambrian explosion of everything.
Maybe it'll flip at some point, Tom, rather than, you know, time is money, it'll be money is time.
Well, I think people need to spend as much time as they can learning about blockchain. I think that's the one equalizer for everybody on the planet.
Yep. And I acknowledge you because you've been a huge advocate and educator in that space for blockchain as well. Before it's been uncool, before it was cool. And how do
this
people?
Was before the whole make money aspect came. That just caught me by the side. I didn't even think about that side of it. I was just excited by these resilient databases that we could use to reorganize ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're in the market for educating and assisting people. I'll post the link in the chat in the video recording here so people know how to reach you.
Yeah.
And what sort of people are you working with to assist at the moment?
We are trying to get more people set up with their own just blockchain accounts, but it's more about like making sure they're set up securely, like looking at their computers, making sure that just doing a screen share of the computers, making sure that they don't have any spyware on their computers. We hear about these hacking things, and we just need to, someone needs to who knows about computers just needs to look over their computer and say, oh yeah, don't run that software, or that one's not trustworthy, or just to go and have a look at things. So we offer free calls, just helping people, just do a quick security check on their computer. And part of that call is they actually get rewarded some STN tokens, because what we want is a world that has better security, like a world that's more secure. So there aren't all these hacking risks. So we give people stickers, STN stickers, points of recognition for moving up to the next security level on their computers. That's an important factor for all of us, because if none of us have good security, then there can be these little hacks every now and then, which is not helpful for people.
Yeah, that's great. It's been fascinating talking with you, Tom. Do appreciate your time. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with us while I've got you at the moment in relation to what your message is and what you're about?
I think we all just want to know that the right thing is happening according to the way we see the world. And that all happens through accountability. So I've worked out, I've said that word a lot, but when you look at an organization, or when you look at your own organizations or your own businesses, like how do you track holding things accountable? Like, do you have a star or sticker process to reward your good employees? Like, this is why, every small business is going to have a blockchain token at some point, like, because they need this incentive mechanism, and they need to prove, even the employees need to improve what value they're providing. And creating new point systems is exactly how you do that. So I would just say that, you know, like forget about forget about the cryptocurrency aspect of that. That'll come, whatever, you know, that's something that happens when things become valuable anyway. That's just natural. That's just how reality works. But, you know, what makes an organization valuable is accountability. That one thing, that are the people doing the right thing? Is the ship moving in the right direction? And what makes an organization is humans. So it's really important that humans get used to sharing blockchain accounts with each other. Like, so we have some free multi-sig training, which just take people through a way of holding each other accountable using blockchain. And that's really important. If you have all those little bits of accountability in it, then you build a valuable organization or a valuable association or community of people that other people start turning their heads and think, yeah, that's cool. I like that. I want more of that. So I think, yeah, that everyone needs to learn how to manage their own blockchain account, make sure they got no spyware on the computers, and then join different organizations that feel right to them. And if it doesn't feel right to them, start their own.
Wonderful. That's great. I really appreciate your time, Tom, and I appreciate your friendship and what you contribute to the space in relation to the solutions. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thanks very much, Paul, and thanks to the listeners for listening to what I had to say. But yeah, this is my perspective, and I'm just sharing from my heart, the way I see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what we all need to do. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
great. Thanks, Tom.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.